In this video, we will discuss what social justice is and how it can help with monitoring and measuring your climate resilience efforts.
What is social justice and how can it help with measuring climate resilience efforts?
We are preparing for a changing climate in an unequal and unjust world. Climate justice cannot be achieved without social justice. When we talk about social justice, what we're talking about are equal rights, equitable treatment, and equitable opportunities for all. Governance that aims to produce social justice fosters representation of people most impacted, intentional practices that ensure consistency in experiences, equal access to participation, fair treatment as judged by those participating, and data-informed resource distribution. The ultimate goal is to uphold civil and human rights as we identify priorities and measurable outcomes. Social justice is the foundation for environmental justice, which aims in part to redress historic and ongoing harm and prevent disproportionate harm from climate change. Different people have defined social justice in different ways, all of which are useful to fully understand it in all of its complexity. There are three dimensions of social justice that are common across these definitions: procedural, distributive, and interactional. We're going to provide an overview of each because each one is an opportunity to identify ways we can think about, set goals, and measure our progress in contributing to equity. Procedural justice. In general, this refers to fairness in the implementation of our rules as well as our governance practices. It involves consideration of how people experience planning and decision-making processes with a particular emphasis on inclusion, accessibility, and ethical standards. A procedural justice approach also includes reducing the impact of bias, ensuring accuracy and accessibility of information, and whether or not systems are in place to correct previous decisions when we get new information or develop a new understanding about an issue. One way to assess procedural justice is through distributing surveys after each engagement. This will allow participants to provide feedback on their experience. Key elements of such a survey might include whether the purpose of the convening was clear, whether participants know how their input shapes the final decision-making process, whether they think their community was represented in the room in a way that honors the diversity of the community. Distributive justice. This refers to fairness in the allocation of resources, benefits, and burdens. Distributive justice considerations include both the outcomes of a planning and decision-making process and how resources are distributed during planning and implementation of policies and programs. A common example of distributive injustice is where one community has higher exposure to hazardous waste and higher proximity to climate threats than other communities.
There are many ways to foster and assess distributive justice in our planning and decision-making processes. Here are two brief examples. During a community engagement process, to set your climate resilience priorities, you could set goals to spend money on local vendors, especially women or minority-owned businesses like restaurants or consultants, and then measure how much was actually spent during the process. You could also assess how many priorities or resilience projects occur within designated EJ neighborhoods. A full equity assessment would look at the extent to which those priorities or resilience projects contribute to remediating the environmental impacts of previous actions or inactions within EJ neighborhoods. Interactional justice refers to the quality of interpersonal interactions during a planning and decision-making process, with an emphasis on upholding the dignity of community members who experience social vulnerability. This is an important consideration in processes that aim to build relationships with historically excluded and currently marginalized communities that are equitable and founded on mutual respect. Two important considerations here include whether the perspectives and contributions of members of the EJ neighborhoods or other priority populations are respected and whether information to participate on equal terms is received by all members of the community. One way to assess interactional justice might involve post-engagement surveys with community members and core team members that includes questions about how they were treated in the process and if they had the information they needed to engage with the people leading the process. One thing you might notice here is that these dimensions of justice are intertwined. Procedural justice directs your attention to information dissemination and decision-making processes. Interactional justice directs your attention to whether those processes provided the conditions for those most impacted to have influence on the decisions made.
In the next video, we provide more specific examples of how you can measure equity using these dimensions of social justice.